We're good.
Okay. Good morning, council members and members of the staff. Hope everyone is having a good morning. I will begin this is the Policy and Governance Committee meeting, and I will begin by calling the roll. We have of council members, Tina Beeman,
Present.
Kyle Abercrombie.
Present.
There he is. Right. Avery Gaddis. I see.
How's it
he's
going?
here. Thank you. All right. And now we have the let us begin with the I'll take a motion to pass the minutes from our December 19th meeting. Can I get
Move to
a motion?
approve. Move to approve.
Second.
Right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you.
I'm abstaining
Good
just
morning.
because I wasn't there.
Right, okay, that we have one abstention. So I will, good morning, staff, everyone. I will turn the meeting over to our executive director, Mr. Brandon McGee.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Shirley. Just by way of introductions for the public and for those who will watch this video whenever, I'll just kind of popcorn and folks can give their name and titles. I know we all know each other, but folks who are watching may not. So I'll kick it over to Christina, and Christina, if you can just call on the next person, that'll be great.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christina. I'm the Chief Operations Officer for the Social Equity Council, and I'm going to hand it over to Madi.
Hi, Maria Di Collazo Cruz. I'm the Legal Director for SEC. Cesar.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Caesar. I am the Program Success and Strategy Analyst for our team, and thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. And I'm just pulling up my presentation for today. Again, it's always important that we're reminded of our mission and our vision, and that is to promote equitable economic prosperity by supporting our Cs and reinvesting in communities most impacted by the war on drugs. Our vision is very clear and straightforward. We want to see our communities prosperous and thriving. Today, we have a rather meaty agenda of which we will expedite, but we will discuss some proposed changes to the Social Equity Council's bylaws, a few proposals or updates to our disproportionately impacted areas policy. Cesar will provide an update on our social equity plan, criteria and rubric. Lastly, we will turn it over to Christina Diamond, who will speak briefly on conversations regarding the adjustment with our 7-year to 3-year conversation we've been having with many of our social equity entrepreneurs. And a shameless plug to invite you all to our legislative committee that we'll be having, our committee meeting we'll be having on March 26th. On that note, I am going to talk a little bit about some of the proposals and changes that we're recommending to this body, our Policy and Governance Committee. One of the things that we were charged with as a result of the planning process was really to take a look at the governance of the Social Equity Council. I will say thank you so much to you members and staff who have been here for the long haul, standing up this organization, creating and establishing our bylaws. But as you all are aware, standing up an agency and growing requires us to take another look at bylaws and how they govern our agency. And so you'll find in your packet, of which you should have received, our current bylaws, and what you see on the screens. Again, on the screen is just our proposed changes. Mr. Chair, I will quickly go through some of the more meatier items, and then we can go back to some of the other updates and recommendations that we have, if you don't mind.
No, actually, I think it'd be a good idea in case there are, in your judgment, there could be more discussion around the issues that that we're to take a look at today. So no, I like that.
So, okay, so I'm going to just direct counselors' attention to 5.6, which is essentially develop the budget. And we are recommending that we revise this particular section. And I'll just read the reasoning, and Madi, feel free to chime in if I'm leaving anything out. But that is to remove, the narrative and added cross-reference to section 4.3 to ensure consistency. We also added, if passed, language to allow the executive director to reallocate up to 20% or 10,000, whichever is greater, between line items, granting flexibility to adapt if needed. And just for what it's worth, what is happening is we are finding ourselves in a little sticky wicky, as one might describe it, when you are trying to plan for piloting programming. We're realigning a lot of our programs to better support recommendations from our strategic plan. It's causing a hiccup in sort of the procurement process. And I will say that we are not stepping out of oversight or any of our signatory requirements, our procurement requirements within DECD in the state of Connecticut. This does not remove power from the council or our Madam Chair or whoever's chair. We still have to go through the steps with respect to approval. So I'll stop there, and I will turn it over to you, Mr. Chair, for any discussion.
Sure, thank
And Madi,
you.
before you do that, Mr. Chair, Madi, did I leave
Yeah.
anything out? Am I missing anything?
No, I think that, the flexibility to reallocate, just for purposes of clarifying, does not mean that you would exceed the global amount that was budgeted for the year. You're just allowed to shift between budget line items, which is a customary practice, right, within different state agencies.
So, actually, I was about to say, for the purposes of those who are joining us, but actually for mine too, could you, I'm trying to understand the revision, executive director. So you reallocate up to 20% or 10,000. So that would be 10,000 of 50,000, right? Which is, I'm just making sure I understand what you're
Yes.
saying here. Okay. And is that I'm $10,000 or
Correct.
okay, I think it'd be useful to put that put the little symbol
the money sign.
and yeah, in front of the 10. All right.
Yes, sir.
So that's helpful. So reallocation between items. So not an increase in it, but a reallocation. Okay. I understand that. Okay. Any other discussion on that particular? I don't see any. I see a hand. Yep.
Hey, good morning,
Councilman
everyone.
Abercrombie.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Just wanted to lend my voice just in support of this change. I think it's standard practice among agencies. I appreciate the SEC staff for providing this ahead of time yesterday so I could review it. And I do think this is will allow the office to operate like other agencies do. You know, you have overages in certain budgeted lines, and you need the flexibility to move things around when necessary. We shouldn't be going back to the council for every kind of small budget item. So, and then the rest of the changes, I also just I'm totally fine and supportive with what the executive director is recommending here.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Gaddis?
I have no problems with the changes as well, and I will look forward to supporting these changes. Thank you.
All right, any other comments on the changes?
Yep, Councilman Beeman has her hand raised.
I'm sorry, Councilman Beeman.
Sure. So I just had one question to clarify. So the amount that can be reallocated is, it looks like it's 20% or $10,000, whichever is greater. So the $10,000 isn't a cap, but rather it's essentially an option. So it's either
Brandon, you're
$10,000
sharing
or
your screen.
Chat is you're
Oh,
sharing your
sorry.
screen, Brendan. It should be a floor to answer your question.
oh, it's a floor. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted clarification on that point.
Yeah, and
Okay.
if I could jump in again, yeah, I mean, I think
Yes.
like the issue would be if we kept it at 20% and there was like you know, you budgeted, you know, $500 for pencils, you know, you didn't need $500 worth of
Oh,
pencils.
please
so
don't
you
say
want,
pencils. Oh, please
Yeah.
don't say pencils.
let's say something else, office supplies, and you only need $250. That would be over 50%. So, you know, they would need to come back to the council and get approval to kind of move between line items to say, hey, you know, we didn't need the full 500. We actually needed 250, and we'd like to move that over to a different line item to buy something
Some
else.
other stuff.
So, yeah.
Although,
Right.
wouldn't that be
Okay.
with whichever is less in the example that you just gave?
Yeah, I think that the wording could be different. I agree.
Yeah.
I think you could say 20% or greater than, you know, $10,000.
It's a good point.
Yeah, because in the
I think we
example
all-
you just gave, yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't quite
right.
line up.
Yeah, I think we all understand the
Up
intent.
to-
So I don't know if Mari, you
No,
Yeah.
no, this
here.
is great feedback.
Yeah, if you could fix
Yeah,
the
that's a
language and
good
make sure.
catch. Thank you, Councilman Beeman. So then it would read, Executive Director added language to allow Executive Director to reallocate up to 20% or $10,000, whichever is less between line items, granting flexibility to adapt if necessary. Well, Michael, do we have to say whichever is at all?
I'm not the legal person, so Madi, if you want to jump in. Words mean
No, I
everything.
Reallocate.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak over anyone else.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I think you do need the clarifying of whether it's going to be whichever is greater or whichever is less. You do need that because it'll vary depending on the line item, right? Some line items might be 300,000. So, you know, 20% of that would be 60,000. So I think you do need the qualification of whichever is less or whichever is greater.
Okay, all right. Executive Director, why don't we touch on the other items so we can move forward.
Cool. All right. So I'm just gonna go back to my first slide to just quickly go through each section that, we wanted to make some changes to our address, update our mission statement. And again, these are all friendly amendments to the bylaws. Attendance, which was, it's an important one. This language is based on statute, which we all can agree upon. We recommend amendment to excuse extended leaves. Folks might be having children or surgery, and, it should be an excused absence. As of late, I really do appreciate the involvement of the council and you all being extremely engaged. So I would hate for you all to be removed because the statute says, you miss all these meetings. So anyway, that's a recommendation there.
Okay. Makes sense.
Additional personnel, we are recommending to revise to align with current practice. These are matters handled under the Department of Administrative Services. They have policies in place, i.e. they manage our HR process. So we cannot establish different rules outside of the state. However, we will engage the council to be a part of hiring and helping us to create job specs, if you would. For example, our finance loan advisory team helped us to think through what a program loan officer position should be moving forward, right? So gleaming from you all's professional skill set and experience in some of these spaces will help us, to move forward and hire the appropriate talent. However, DAS has a process in place that we are to follow.
Okay.
Signature authority, just wanted to update that. We added a threshold to allow for expendicy and efficacy or efficiency rather. I know that has been like a little sticky wicky. Kyle, I don't know if you had any feedback on that, but we wanted to update that as well. Participation in the selection of our Social Equity Council staff, of which I think kind of covered, the 3.5 that I mentioned, just updating it to align to our current practice. Workforce development plans, we added language to align with our social equity plan, just to make sure that everything is not like wonky and that it is standardized across both of those programs. The preparation of our quarterly reports, removing that, created new section in 5.5 to require the executive director to prepare all statutorily required reports. Broader language is preferred so that we don't need to update every time a report is added by statute. Any questions on that?
One quick question on the signature. What was that?
3.5.
Yeah, 3.5, right. Added threshold to allow for expediency. Okay. What is the threshold that was added?
Marty?
Yeah, so this, it's to allow the executive director to sign, to enter into contracts up to $100,000 without requiring prior approval from the council. Currently, I believe the threshold is 50,000. So it just allows for greater expediency, as mentioned. I feel the need to point out, right, that this threshold would not override oversight from the chairwoman, nor internally with DECD policies. The current policy requires that the chairwoman and Kyle sign off on these types of agreements. So you would still have that oversight in addition to compliance with OPM requirements or DAS procurement requirements.
Okay, any questions on that from my council members?
Mr. Chairman, I think those changes are sensible and practical. Thank you.
You're welcome. The only thing I would ask is that, suggest that we put the amounts in there, added threshold to allow for expediency, so that it's abundantly clear that we're moving from this to that, from 50 to 100. Unless there is an issue, a legal issue, or is there any reason why we would not want to say that in this particular change?
I think
Okay.
that's
No,
that's
so I'll
perfectly fine.
clarify that this table it's basically a summary of the changes that were made, but the actual
see.
language in the bylaws is pretty explicit.
It's in
and
there.
contains
Okay.
all the changes.
Understood. Thank you.
And we'll be sure to provide that to this committee first, so that when we are reporting out to the full council, Mr. Chair, you'll have everything in front of you so that you can present out.
I see. Okay. Thank you. Are there any other, well, Director McGee, this is the total change? Have we touched on all of them?
For the most part, I have just a couple more, if I may.
Sure.
5.4, social equity and workforce development plans, again, aligning with current practice, and we want to add other programs, i.e. our loan and reinvestment program. I think preparation of our monthly reports, report of committee action, adoption of policies, all pretty self-explanatory, so I won't belabor the updates here. But again, for the sake of the broader community watching this, these are all friendly recommendations, again, to better align us with our current operations and where we are.
All right. So at this point, do the council members need to vote? Because what you're asking us to do is to present this to the full council at the next meeting.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I move
Yes.
that we move this for recommendation to the full council for consideration, Mr. Chairman.
All right, may I get a second?
I second.
All right, all those in favor indicate by, well, any more discussion?
One quick point of discussion. I do think we still need to clarify 5.6 before we move it forward. So I don't know if you want to amend your motion to move everything forward except 5.6 until we get that clarification.
No, I don't want to amend my motion because it's just a recommendation for the full council to consider. And by the time it gets to the full council, everything could be cleaned up and the full council will vote ultimately on that language. This is just a recommendation to move forward.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions before I ask for a vote? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? None. All right, thank you. The motion passed. So we will present these at the full council meeting, at our next full council meeting, which is in April, first Tuesday in April. All right, Executive Director.
All right, and just to kind of close that out, we'll make sure again that 5.6 has been updated, and we'll share that with the committee beforehand, before the council meeting, that is.
Great.
All right, so I am going to turn it over to Madi just to talk through our DIA policy recommendation that we've been discussing internally, and then turn it back over to you, Chair, for discussion. Madi?
Thank you. I'm not sure if you all had a chance to review what was sent in preparation to the meeting, but the SEC is currently recommending that we update our social equity status individuals policy. And for purposes of, I guess, using the acronyms and understanding what we're talking about, currently we use SEES, S-E-E, but previously we used to refer to these folks as social equity individuals. And for purposes of the process within DCP, they're referred to social equity backers or SEI backers. The policy currently in place dictates that if you submit a new application for an EJV, you must meet the current criteria for social equity status under the 2023 map. We are suggesting, and I don't know, some of you were here during the map changes and some of you are new, the changing of the maps and the status of social or of SEIs has always been sort of a controversial point where people differ on what stance we should take. What we are recommending is a more progressive approach than the current policy, allowing folks that were certified under the 2021 map and 2022 map to maintain that status, because when they submit an EJV application, they're not required to undergo the backer approval process again. Through DCP. That was something that was implemented on our end. We feel that it's more progressive and a better approach for the industry and our SEEs to be able to maintain that status. So we've proposed on the screen, you have the current policy, which basically states, all new applications have to comply with the current 2023 criteria versus the proposed language, which reads, for purposes of equity joint applications, all SEIs approved by the Social Equity Council prior to the certification of the 2023 DIA map shall continue to be eligible for social equity status until the next DIA map certification. So we're not saying they're going to keep this status in perpetuity, right? We've seen that to determine the DIA maps, we've used different criteria over time, and that tends to evolve depending on how you're evaluating the impact of the war on drugs. So what we're saying is, let's allow these SEI backers to keep that status until we certify the map again. We would not be increasing, right, the limit, obviously, on EJVs. That's statutorily mandated. So that wouldn't impact that. I don't know if anyone has any questions regarding this proposal.
Only question I have is, when is the next map review?
This time that is unknown, right? We're not required, thankfully, to continue updating this on an annual basis.
Okay.
But we do want to leave a room in the event that we do a new certification based on new data points or, decisions made regarding how we measure the impact of the war on drugs on different communities.
Understood. Any other questions on this particular proposal? All right, now, Director, do we need to vote on to take a? We do.
Yes, sir.
I'll take a motion, please, to approve this for presentation to the full council.
So moved.
Second?
Okay.
All right, any more discussion? If not, let me add, any more discussion? No. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. All right, thank you. Let's move on.
Great. All right, so for the sake of, actually, before I go into integration of council and staff, just to let you all know, I'm still allowing this strategic plan to guide our work. I'm going to turn it over to Cesar, who's going to update us on the social equity plan criteria and rubric, which was one of the major findings within the comptroller's examination, and also, quite frankly, the council's concern with respect to how we were reviewing many of these social equity plans and sort of the lapse in time it took to review many of these plans. And so we've done a lot of internal cleanup, putting in policies and procedures, and I will turn it over to Cesar.
Okay,
You're on mute, Cesar. It has to happen, you know, when you're.
All right. You're all, oh, sorry, it's not the right screen.
It was pretty, whatever it was.
It was
There you
some
go.
research that I've been doing on a different program that we're working on. So the information on that will come out soon. But I have just a quick synopsis of the criteria, rubric, and updates. And if you have any questions, please feel free to chime in at the end. So to start off, why were the updates made? For a few different reasons: to better align with the strategic plan, to address concerns brought forward in the comptroller's report, and to align with the statutory intent of RERACA, to address the ambiguity in the criteria of the previous criteria, to address clarity requests from social equity entrepreneurs, and in the same respect, to provide these entrepreneurs with new rubrics and templates to help with the formatting and reporting to ease the process. In part of these revisions, we now utilize social determinants of health, which are defined by the CDC as the cultural, economic, and social factors that impact somebody's health. This could be things like income, education, unemployment, working conditions, et cetera, et cetera. And these social determinants of health are the framework on how the social equity entrepreneurs and the social equity plans can address the needs of the community. Now, to take this a step further, we introduced example social determinant of health-based themes for these plans. They are specifically reentry and reintegration support services for formerly justice impacted individuals, to increase engagement with early childhood and youth development initiatives, and to increase engagement with elderly support services. And this really was just to make sure that if there were any questions on what types of programs they should do, they already have a starting point. For the revisions of the plan requirements, there are a couple things. We require the plans to be written to one or more of the themes relating to social determinants of health. We establish target DIAs, and these are the specific DIA census tract in which the cannabis establishment is located. And if it's not located in one, the nearest DIA census tract. We require the plans to be ongoing while a cannabis establishment is in operation. We prohibit copy and pasting of plans, except in the case when a company has multiple licenses and is sharing a location and target DIA. We do allow licensees to contribute to the same community organization if they have unique plans, make unique contributions, and share a target DIA. We allow cannabis establishments to make change requests regarding their social equity plan to the SEC. It's subject to our decision, and that's in case they need to pivot. Maybe a program isn't working and they want to make a better impact on their community. And the definition of stakeholder and community stakeholder has been clarified. What was previously just a stakeholder is now a community member, and community stakeholder has stayed the same. And we did this to separate the definitions a bit and make it easier for the social equity entrepreneurs and whoever's writing the plan to know the difference between each of these categories, because we would often see confusion in that area. In the statement of purpose, we amended that, but specifically now the companies must explain their gaps or the social determinant of health informed themes that they'll address, and they must identify the target DIA they'll be doing the work in the statement of purpose. And for the community stakeholder interviews, we require at least 3 individuals to be interviewed. We require a list of the stakeholders, an explanation of the individuals unwilling to cooperate, especially in the cases of federal prohibition concerns, and we require the interviews to be documented on a wonderful template that we provide to them to make their life easier. The community needs assessment has been amended to our community engagement section. The purpose is the same, but now it's surrounding the community.
Did we lose him? Don't you just like technology? And his presentation is actually up. I would jump in and take over. We all have copies of it. But he was going through the community needs assessment, as you all can see on the screen, which has been amended to really ensure that folks are gathering feedback from the community and that it's informed by the social determinants of health. There was some concern around, well, how many meetings should actually happen within the community? And so we were able to kind of outline that and give examples. Also requesting that documentation be provided to support these community events. We were finding that some of our social equity applicants, unfortunately, would just submit information and not justify it. And we could not justify, did you really have this meeting or not? And unfortunately, it just did not work out. And so we were able to clarify that. Cesar, I'm not sure if you were able to jump back on. I do see your picture. So once he comes back on, maybe we'll resume with his presentation. But what I'll do is I'll pivot, Mr. Chair, over to Christina, who can provide us an update on our conversations with many of our social equity entrepreneurs with respect to the 7 year to 3 year adjustment to support some of their interest. And we have our stance on it, but I think Christina can do a better job explaining that. Christina?
Yep. So this is in regards to equity joint ventures. And currently, equity joint ventures aren't allowed to change ownership for 7 years. And there are a few stakeholders out there that are looking to change this and bring it down to 3 years. And as Brandon has said, we've been talking to our social equity entrepreneurs. Some of them would like to keep the 7 years, as you know that some, even not just cannabis businesses, but most businesses don't start seeing any real profits until after 3 years, once the business has been stood up. So this 7 years was put into place to sort of protect the social equity applicants. And we're having conversations with many of the stakeholders, and we're leaning towards not wanting to change any of that legislation now, but rather doing a more in-depth look as to how we can better protect social equity entrepreneurs, but also balance that with allowing for flexibility. So are there any questions on that?
One question from me. I remember the reasoning behind the 7 years, which I agreed with at the time. Question is, they by moving into 3 years within at the end of 3 years, the social equity applicant could be forced to sell. Is that what we're
I
saying?
mean, the legislation wouldn't allow for forcing them. So I guess it would be whatever the agreement is between the social equity entrepreneur. But it would provide an opportunity for them to be able to change ownership within the 3 years. And I think that it is currently, the way the law is written, it is not, I believe it is an option for them. It is not a mandate that they have to
Not a
change
mandate.
ownership. I'll let Marty. Is that the case, that it's not a mandate? It's an option right now for the 3 years?
Yeah, so I think this brings up another issue. When we talk about ownership and control, what we're requiring at the moment, it's a 50-50, which lends itself for deadlocks, right? Which is what our SEIs are facing, because there's no majority. So when the backers and the SEIs disagree, there's a deadlock situation. So that's another policy concern. And regards to the timing, what we're seeing with as you know, we review the arrangements that these folks are entering into to make sure that they're commercially reasonable within our expectations. And what we often see is that there is language that basically triggers that change in ownership right at year 7, or sooner if allowed by statute, right? So some of these backers are taking those measures in the event that we do make the changes. So during testimony, Brandon yesterday said it really depends on the structure or the scheme that these establishments are created under. So some of them might be, severely impacted, whereas others who might have been more business savvy have other provisions in their agreements that better protect them.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I can see the reasoning. On the one hand, we want to protect the social equity applicant. On the other hand, we don't want to create and maybe that's the way the situation is now. We have a situation where we are preventing certain investors from coming in because they don't like the 7-year rule.
Correct.
And so we want to make it easier for the social equity applicant to get investors, but at the same time, we don't want him to, at the end of 3 years, to have to, by a reason of a vote, have to, sell his interest at a value that is fair, but that we know will increase over the next 4 to 7 years. I mean, that's.
Yes.
So-
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna add, how do we thread that needle in terms of.
So Christina is actually taking the lead on this one and convening many of our stakeholders, and I'm working alongside her. We're toggling between our clientele, our social equity entrepreneurs, in the legislative body at the moment, and so we invite this committee to join us on next week during our legislative committee meeting to further discuss this matter and really decide as a council how we want to move forward, essentially. So shameless plug, y'all come over to the legislative committee meeting.
I appreciate it.
But we thought it was important that we mention it here because this is also policy and governance, and you all should be aware of the conversations that we're having. Cesar is back, so I kind of did a little remix, Cesar, if you want to jump in where you left off on the community side on the forms and just take it away, and we'll end off with Cesar, and that will conclude our updates. Cesar?
All right, and apologies for that. My teams decided that it didn't want to work anymore.
It's all good.
So back to the community needs assessment. It has been amended to the community engagement section. And the goal of this really is the same type of thing, but now we want to center it around the social determinant of health and form social equity themes. So what we'd like to do is have them do 2 forms of community engagement, any of the 3 options between community or town hall meetings, surveys requiring at least 50 participants, or focus groups / charrettes, including community members and community stakeholders. We're requiring documentation to be provided to support these community engagement events, and we want a reasonable effort to accommodate the greatest number of community members as possible. So this would be things like multiple dates, hybrid meetings, easily accessible locations, and for surveys, things like surveys that are accessible by desktop, mobile devices, and possibly even paper in case people don't have those, so that everyone in the community can have their input be shared. For the letters of support, we require the letters of support to be from a community stakeholder, or what's newly been added, a community member who participated in a community engagement event to give them the chance to have their voice heard. There must be 3 letters of support provided. These letters must reference the specific cannabis establishment, not the company generally, and should be addressed to the Social Equity Council or its executive director. If the letters of support are not included, it is an automatic denial, and we do this because we feel it is important and imperative to have community input and community stakeholder input in these social equity plans to show that people are in support of these businesses. The letters of support no longer count towards the page limit, which is a plus for our social equity entrepreneurs, and now they have a little bit more flexibility with the social equity plan, and the Social Equity Council may assess the letter's credibility at its own discretion and contact the stakeholders as needed. For the program revisions, we removed language about expungement clinics. Prior, there was a bit of a confusing area where it said they couldn't do education on it, but then it said that they could do expungement clinics. Many of our social equity entrepreneurs have been doing a great job with them, and we want to encourage them to continue doing these types of programs. For the social equity goals, the goals are what the establishment will try and achieve the long-term community impacts that they'll learn and decide through their community engagement efforts and the community stakeholder interviews. And the programs are the ways of achieving and actualizing these goals. These should be programs that they can support that are pre-existing in the community, and they could be done through monetary support, in-kind donations, or voluntary support, just to make sure that there's more strength in the DIA that they're working with. Other general revisions and updates, the timelines were requiring them to be explained quarterly so that they can say what they're going to be doing each quarter for the social equity plan, how it's going to go, what progress they're making, etc. We want the individual responsible for the plan to be identified by name. Previously it was name or position, but we want to make sure we can have that direct line of contact with whoever will be administering this. The MBE process has been clarified, and we created a template for MBE documentation to make it easier for the SEEs to follow that process and make sure they're checking off all the boxes. And to elaborate a little bit, we require our SEEs to conduct business with at least 2 minority business enterprises, require the service agreements and certificates of authenticity that they are certified by DAS, and a renewal of contracts and proof of procurement annually to make sure that they're still doing the work with these organizations. And we require semi-annual and annual reporting, and we want it to be provided on templates that we give to them, so it makes it one step easier, and the 6-month one leads into the annual one, so there's not much of a transition there. Just it's a general update on all of the different templates that we've created. We offer a cover page with all the relevant information, contact people, Senate and House district, etc. We provide a community stakeholder interview template, social equity program template, an MBE form template, semi-annual and annual progress report templates, and a contribution tracking chart to see where their funds, in-kind donations, or volunteer hours are going, and to be able to quantify that and provide some metrics for us to report out on. Additionally, for the rubric, most of the changes reflect everything that has been expressed throughout this presentation, but specifically there is a larger point spread for our SEEs and whoever's filling out the social equity plan. There's a 0, 3, 5, 8, and 10. So now there's middle ground. Before it was a 0, 4, and 10, and we had received numerous points of feedback saying that they would like to have clearly defined things for each point category, and know that there's a middle ground where if like they have 3 out of 5 things, they're not getting dinged all the way down to 4 points, and maybe they'd fall more in the 8 or 5 point category. We again require that letters of support are necessary, and the section is pass fail. It's actually the first part on the new rubric, so that they see right away that if they don't have these letters of support, the plan will not be able to be approved. Again, these rubric updates reflect those on the criteria document, and we just explicitly state in the categories where relevant that the SEC provided templates are necessary. And now, the fun part, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Any questions for Cesar here?
No questions.
Just-
Great job, Cesar.
Yeah,
Thank you
just
very much.
Just want to say that it's a rigorous set of revisions, and I think that they are all productive from what I see. So, no, great job.
Thank you. And I want to just give a shout out to the team who helped me along the way with revisions, making sure that things are in line. And just thank you to all the support that I've received from the team on getting these updates up, and we're ready to launch them.
Great. And, I'm glad to hear that the social equity applicants and their backers are taking the social equity plan seriously. It sounds like they are.
Yeah, and they've actually been reaching out to us if they have any questions. We've been meeting with them, providing them support. And actually, even yesterday, we received a compliment at the Legislative Office Building for helping people make it through the finish line while adhering to the criteria that we have in place.
Great. That was a concern, but so glad to hear. Thank you. All right. Director Clay, I see another upcoming meetings. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
just
okay.
just for the sake of folks watching, I still offer you all invitation, come through, come visit us. Monday and Wednesdays, we are here. I'm here every day, so if you guys just want to pop up, we could have lunch. We're good, or we can meet via Teams. Feel free, please contact Georgette Cicero. We can schedule some time there. Our next regular council meeting is on April Fools. We are having a meeting, folks. It's not, we'll be there at 10 o'clock. And then later on today, we will have our finance committee meeting. And then next week, again, we have our legislative committee meeting at 4. So I'll turn it over to you, and I see Councilor Gaddis's hand raised.
Yep, Councilman Gaddis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brandon, your team did a really good job. This was a very, very informative meeting. Cesar, you did a great job. Thank you very much. I had some technical troubles myself. Going back to what Attorney Beeman said earlier, if we could just get a clean copy of all the language so that we could eyeball it before it goes to the full council, that would be great. But thank you very much, and happy Friday's Eve.
Thank you, Councilman Gaddis. I thought you were about to make a motion, but first of all, let me, for the good of the order, are there anything? If not,
Seeing that, Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
Second.
I thought you would. Thank you very much. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you for a great meeting, team. Really
Great job,
appreciate
Mr.
it.
Chair.
All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you, everyone. Bye.
You have a good one. Bye-bye.
All right.
Take care.
Take care.